That's why I raised just the way soil and water was coming after me, how I understood
how it is.
regulations.
Okay, just to remind everybody, this meeting is live streamed, so if you are gonna say something during open forum or you have a presentation, please step up to the microphone so everybody can hear you. And with that, we'll call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So that brings us to public forum. Anybody here wish to speak in public forum? Yep.
I'm Bruce Jensen. I'm supervisor with Norman Township. And
Bruce,
thank you. I'd like to talk for a minute about the sale of some of these tax forfeited properties
okay,
going on. I'm not against getting rid of tax forfeited properties, but I think in certain cases they shouldn't be sold. And we have a couple that are here. They're up off of Stevens Lake Road. They're bulk of it's wetlands. It's really swampy back in there. And both of them are landlocked properties. So it if they're sold, the problem of access to the properties falls on the township and the related neighboring property owners. And that's where we have the issue is you guys are getting rid of it. There's not much value to it. And then we got to go through the process of a cartway process, which I don't know if any of you have been involved in them, but they can get pretty ugly. So we don't want everything just treated as tax forfeit. Let's get rid of it. We'd like to see some discussion. Yeah, what's the effect of selling this property going to have on neighbors, everything else? Both these properties in question here, there's one property owner that would probably have two separate cartways put through his property to get through to these properties that are for sale. Well, if I was that guy, I'd be, to put it bluntly, I'd be pretty pissed off. So that's what we want you to look at. And the town of Norman, we've talked about this and we are against the sale of these properties. So that's pretty much it for me.
thanks Bruce for coming.
You bet.
Yep.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anybody else? Do we have anybody online? Okay. Thanks again, Bruce. We'll look to adopt the agenda and I know we got a couple of additions.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dave Minke, County Administrator. There are two additions. If we could add consent agenda item number 2.1, septic fix-up special assessment, and to regular agenda item number 4.1, a flood update, and then resolution 2023-27 declaring a local emergency. And Denise Anderson is here to give a flood update at that time as well.
Make a motion to accept the additional items. Agenda.
So
Got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Waldham. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the minutes of April 4th, 2023, County Board minutes and summary for publication.
Second.
Motion by Ludwig, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We've got no other reports and correspondence. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which you've had in front of you for several days. I just have a question, David, and that I should ask it before. But I forgot. The COVID relief funds gained $750,000. How does that happen at this type in time?
The payment was made in May of 2022. And so it's comparing the March 2021
Oh,
March 2022 to the March 2023. So the second half of the
Okay.
payment came in between this measurement period.
okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Accept approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the regular agenda. We'll have the facilities committee report.
You want to take a facility? Sure. Yeah, we met on the 5th. We talked about the roof of the courthouse, chillers for the building. Also, there's some roofs. Pine County or Pine City and sandstone shop roofs. Parking lot at the PCCS. Pine City. Bonds are expiring. Talked a bit about using those dollars for the 27-23. Is that Matt retiring debt service? Money coming in off of that?
Yeah, that's about 9 years old.
Then redoing the contract was the big one, right?
Yep, renewing the contract with the city.
Yeah.
You guys remember when we did the initial contract for,
Yep.
we can only do a 5-year contract for deed. So the main point was we gave them the option to renew and it'll be paid out for the next 5 years. So we approved that and I'll make a motion to approve those things if we're requiring.
Yeah. I'll second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Waldham. To approve the facilities recommendation for a new 5-year contract. City of Sandstone. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Personnel committee report.
You want me to take it? All right, we met on April 10th and made the following recommendations. Probation acknowledges the resignation of probation supervisor Kevin Glass effective April 14th, 2023. Approve the backfill of the position, any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. And part of that, ratify the promotion of Sherry Johnson to probation supervisor effective April 17th, 2023. And just a little background, I think I'll just take probation here and should I just make a motion on that? I just wanted to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, we can do this if you want to do it.
Okay, yeah, I'll just make a motion to do the probation part so we can have a little discussion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll have a little discussion on it.
Yeah, so Kevin did get, he accepted a position in Itasca County, right? For the director. So he actually came to the personnel committee and did his own recommendations for his own resignation. So it's kind of interesting, but we all wished him well and it's pretty good when you got one of your employees that goes to another county to be promoted in that type of way. So he was very thankful for Pine County, said it's a great place. He said if it wasn't for the promotion, he would definitely have stayed here. So, but
He will be missed, but
Yeah.
Jerry will be amazing also.
Anything else? We wish Kevin the best. We'll vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we'll move on to Health and Human Services.
All right, acknowledge the resignation of adult mental health social worker Jennifer Phelan effective April 10, 2023, and approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Also acknowledge the resignation of eligibility worker Jennifer Rowland effective April 10th, 2023, and approve the backfill of the position, any subsequent vacancies that may occur to internal promotion or lateral transfer. In Veteran Services, approve the job description for Assistant Veteran Service Officer at grade 9 and authorize recruitment for the part-time position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Part of that is approve the changes to the job description for the Veteran Service Officer. Position remains at a grade 10. Sheriff's Office Jail acknowledge the resignation of Corrections Officer Christy Aronoff effective April 13th, 2023, and approve the backfill of the position, any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. And then in the assessor, approve updates on the appraiser job description with no change in the grade. And with that, I will make a motion to approve that. I'll say.
Motion by Moore, seconded by Ludwig. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yep,
Sure.
go ahead.
The resignations again in Health and Human Services, it just seems like there's always so many. Is there any discussion on why, or is that still the exit interview process?
Yeah,
Is it
what was the one? The one wasn't there very long.
Right.
And she just said it wasn't.
Didn't like it.
wasn't her thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one. I didn't write no notes. I was looking Becky, but what was the other one?
I think, I'm not sure on that one.
changed jobs too.
She
right?
changed jobs, yeah.
So,
But the other thing is, it's a tough job.
yeah,
It's hard.
yeah. And the one
Yeah.
she wasn't there, and they were pretty hopeful and she had said that, yeah, this thing.
Just
Once she
such a-
started doing it, it was like, yeah.
It's such a big turnover.
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, and
I think you need to look at also how many long-term employees that they have, because they have a lot of employees in that office,
Hmm.
that department.
And there's almost,
JJ, we always ask that. and
Yeah.
There was nothing standing out as far as,
and there's
issues.
almost 100 employees in
yeah.
that area too. So it does kind of seem like, but I think comparatively, the jail is doing way worse. So, but
There is always somebody from that group.
yeah,
It's like,
Mr. Chair, Becky is online if there's any comments she wants.
I think Commissioner Moore and Commissioner Ludwig kind of summed it up. We're not seeing anything huge. I just think these are really difficult positions. People come in, they're excited. Maybe it's not what they were thinking. They're super complicated. I know with the adult mental health social worker resignation, she came to us with, I believe it was over a decade of experience, wanted to change, wanted to come to us. She was working for a different contracted agency for a health plan and just decided it was time to move on from adult mental health case management, which is a really, it's difficult and it's stressful. So I honor that and respect her decision to move on.
The positions you need a degree for these positions, right? You need a college degree. You're trained in this?
For some of them, not all of the positions in Health and Human Services, but the most of the positions in social services and public health are college degrees. Not all, because we have some support staff where that's not required, but most are in those two areas.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Hey.
Opposed? Now we're gonna get an update from Lori for Central Minnesota Council on Aging, Older American Act.
Yeah, so thank you for having me today. I'm Lori Burleson, the Director of the Central Minnesota Council on Aging. And normally when I come before you, I'm asking for funding, and I'm not today. But I am here to talk to you about funding, and we can go to the next slide. I'm here to talk with you about some changes with the interstate funding formula. And this is the formula that the Minnesota Board on Aging uses to allocate out the $20 million a year that the state of Minnesota receives and uses to allocate out to the 6 regional area agencies on aging and 1 tribal area agency on aging. And this funding is used then to support older adults in their own homes. And if you can go to the next slide. It funds things such as nutrition, hunger dining, home delivered meals, transportation, chore, homemaker, caregiver supports, health promotion. It's services that really work to keep older adults in their own homes and support family caregivers. So if we go to the next slide, we can see specifically in 2022, this is information on specifically for our 14 county area, how the Older Americans Act dollars were used in our 14 county area. So when we receive the dollars, we have a board, and Commissioner Hallen serves on our board, that looks at how the funds will be distributed and awarded to providers throughout our region. And we provide contracts and grants out. And in 2022, those 19 contracted providers reached over 30,000 older adults. So 1 in every 5 older adults in our 14 county area is supported by services through the Older Americans Act. We have 176 older adults in our 14 county area. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see specifically in Pine County how this funding was used. So in 2022, $321,000, almost $322,000 was invested in services specifically for older adults in Pine County. That's about 8% of the funding. In Pine County, you represent about our 60 plus population. So just a little bit of context there. So you'll kind of see specifically how that was provided. So you can see, for example, 48 older adults received almost 1,500 hours of homemaking services, 6 older adults with 20 hours of health assessment. Our largest category of funding is nutrition. So you can see that almost 2,000 congregate meals, 43,000 home delivered meals were provided to residents of Pine County. The home delivered meals includes individuals receiving traditional home delivered meals to frail older adults. But it also includes some of our, we refer to them as pop-up sites, but they're food distribution sites that we opened during COVID, and we continue to do with Catholic Charities. So in Pine County, we have 4 locations that Catholic Charities is providing frozen meal bundles, really targeting low-income seniors where they can pick up to 20 frozen meals a month. And that's happening in conjunction with food shelves and the nutrition assistance sites, the NAP sites for low-income seniors in Willow River, Asco, Hinkley, and then the Pine City food shelf. So that's wrapped up in that 43,000 home delivered meal number. 23 individuals with 75 hours of legal counsel, and then you can kind of see as it goes on down. So that's really the impact of the Older Americans Act funding specifically in Pine County. Are there any questions on the services before I move on? So if we go to the next slide, what will be happening is that at the federal level, the Administration of Community Living has indicated to the Board on Aging, and the Board on Aging is a 25-member appointed council board that's appointed by the governor. The Administrative Committee on Living has told the Board on Aging that they have to redo the interstate funding formula. It has not been done since 2004, so it's almost 20 years old. And they have to submit a new funding formula proposal by July 1st. And so over the course of the last year, they have been looking at doing analysis of what other states use for their formula and have looked at various weights and factors and have gone through 5 different iterations of drafts, but they are now in the public comment of this formula. So we go to the next slide. So as the Board on Aging develops their formula, they look at what is the target of the Older Americans Act. And the Older Americans Act is for eligibility, it's serving individuals over age 60, but it's targeting low income, rural, diverse, frail populations. And so as they look at their formula, they're looking at not only the 60 plus, but then they're looking at what other factors they want to consider as they look at allocating out the dollars, and then how that will impact across the state so that they have an equitable funding ratio. So if we look at the next slide, what you'll see is the third factor is in blue, and you can see that's largely based on that. And the new proposal also includes those living alone and those with disability. And they have increased the rural factor and then the minority factor. And this all has, each weight and factor has a drastic implication for how the funds actually drive down to each region. So if we go to the next slide. A parallel process to this is that there are, as I said, 6 area agencies on aging and 1 tribal area agency on aging. And that tribal area agency on aging covers 4 tribes right now. And the Minnesota Board on Aging later this month will be raising the planning and service areas across the state and allowing the opportunity for all 11 tribes to indicate whether or not they would like to be an independent area agency on aging, or if they would like to go under the Minnesota Indian Area Agency on Aging. And then if any current planning and service area boundaries should change. And we cover right now that green area, the light green area of 14 counties. We've had discussions with our board. We will not be putting in a request to change our planning and service area. We believe that that 14 county area serves the constituents well. For those that have been around for a while, you'll recall back in 2010, there was a consolidation of area agencies on aging. There used to be 14. This area used to be covered by the Regional Development Commissions. So it was a 5-county area, and then there was the 5-county in the north, and then the Central Minnesota Council on Aging actually only covered Stearns, Neck, and Sherburne and Wright. So back in 2010, there was a consolidation. We went from 4 counties to 14 counties. And while I say that this is a separate process, it drastically will impact the interstate funding formula. So if we go to the next slide, the current funding formula is what you have in blue. And you can see that the Central Minnesota Council on Aging for our 14 counties, we received just over 13% of the allocation. The proposed is what's in the middle. And you can see in there that we're proposed to receive an increase. Anything that's in green is an increase. But with what the Board on Aging is proposing, what you'll see is that there's about $700,000 annually that will transition from outstate to the Metro 7-county area. That's not new funding coming into the state. The Older Americans Act funding has been flat for years. And even though we have an increase in senior population, our funding has been flat. And so what the concern is that we have several outstate area agencies on aging that will be I believe will be crippled with this allocation process. And from my perspective, in discussions with the outstate AAAs, I believe that will lead into further consolidation, not because the Board on Aging will be putting that out this time in planning and service areas, but because they just simply won't have the infrastructure funding to exist. And so the rural area agencies on aging are proposing what's in the yellow. And that redoes the factors and weights, and we believe that that allocation will, while it still will have a negative impact to several of the rural area agencies on aging, it will be one that won't be as drastic and will be survivable by those AAAs. So if we go to the next slide, this is an illustration of funding formula and what the impacts are when you actually roll it out. So I took the 2021 nutrition allocation because that's our largest category of funding. And when we look at 2021 in our 14 county area statewide, we know that 57,000 older adults receive meals across the state through the Older Americans Act, with targeted dining and home delivered meals. In our 14 county area, we received 13.68% of the funding. We serve 20% of all older adults being served in the state, but we only receive 13% of the funding. In comparison, the 7-county metro area served 13% of all individuals, but they received 41% of the funding. So the meal delivery models are extremely different. The needs are extremely different for the 7-county metro area versus outstate. You know, part of our delivery model isn't solely serving individuals that are low income and frail. We're also focusing on food access. And so it's very different than in the metropolitan area. And the delivery costs are very different in outstate. And so you know, I showcase this because it just shows the equity issues of the interstate funding formula that currently is in place. And I believe the proposal that is being proposed just will increase that by diminishing resources in outstate Minnesota. So we go to the next slide. Really, and I'll just skip to the next one. My ask to you today is to during public comment is to provide comment on the interstate funding formula and seek a revision that will support rural Minnesota and one that is equitable. The public comment will run through May 3rd, and I did provide in the packet a draft sample letter, and I do have another draft for you here today, and I will ask you as a board, you can submit that letter. You can go on to the state website, but there's also just an email address, which is much easier to send by, and provide that comment.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions. The first one is, how does someone get in there? How you enter it through what system? And the other one is, how does this square against families that have to pretty much age in place because of income? You know what I mean? They can't afford to, so they, you know, those families just, they stay out there and then they have family support, but it's hard to do 7 days a week or whatever. But they still have income that might not qualify for this. So, you know, that kind of thing. And there's going to be more and more, I think, of the aging in place just because it's so expensive to enter.
Yeah.
Can I add to his real quick? So you were talking about the families that have the money, but we have families, we have individuals that do not have money, but they have pride. And because of their pride, they're not willing to ask for help. So how can we help them to do it also?
Yes, some great questions. So with the Older Americans Act, it's not means tested. So it really works as, I always think of it as a safety net to the waivered services that you as a county administer. So we're targeting low-income seniors. There's no means tested, there's no income or eligibility guideline for the services. So the eligibility is 60 plus. So, for example, with the nutrition program, as an example, we have congregate dining, where it's at locations, typically at senior centers, for example. And then there's the home delivered meals, which are really targeting those frail individuals who can't get out. And then those food, frozen food delivery, where we're targeting at food shelves and food commodity locations. So it's how we're targeting the services. But anybody over age 60 can access the services. They're provided on a donation basis. So individuals are provided information on what the full cost of the service is and what a recommended donation for the service is, but they make the decision whether or not they can donate or not. And oftentimes, you know, they may have additional healthcare bills and other things that are contributing to why they can't donate. But the services are provided on a donation.
Thank you.
And in terms of how people access and hear about it, it's often from it's often from the provider network, whether it's from the county or from the faith community. Senior Linkage, which is one of the services that we operate at the local level. It's from, you know, neighbors and friends that know about the services. So with the Older Americans Act programs, our agency does not provide the service. We contract with providers and we're working with local providers to do the service. So for example, the homemaker services, one of our providers is Family Pathways. The nutrition out here is Catholic Charities. So we're working with local providers who know the community, have relationships, and are entrenched locally that can build those referral relationships.
Thank you.
And it's also supported by a lot of volunteers.
Yes.
Because Catholic Charities provides the meals, but the people that deliver those meals are people like us.
Mm-hmm.
We go there, pick them up and take them to whoever's home. And
I just worry about the population that gets in between. You know, the wealthy could, you know, get things taken care of and then,
and I think that's
low income get
that the people that have not been involved in a community sometimes don't hear that this is available.
Yeah.
If most churches are involved in some way, shape or form with helping people get pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
If you're not in the faith community, you miss out on that. If you're not involved with the senior center, you miss out on that. So I think it's all of our jobs to do that outreach kind of thing if we hear of something. One of the, I think, I don't know, programs that seems to strike home with me is the respite care for the people. If you're a caregiver of a spouse who has Alzheimer's, you need a break once in a while. And so the church I go to happens to host that event. And so some friends of mine go there and help, but the people, the caregivers get to go or drop their spouse off or whatever and just go to the library for an hour or break and take a break. And you just need, you know what it's like, Matt, you've lived it. we've lived it. You just need a break. And so, it's one of those golden opportunities that everybody has to help volunteer to go and, make sandwiches for them when they're there, or just sit with people and play checkers with them or something,
Hey, question.
Yep.
You're just on your data source, I understand the census, but what's ACS?
American Community Survey. It goes along with the census.
Oh.
Mhm. So the data sources, when they come up with in order for this is what I mean, comes up with the funding formula, they have to use data sources that can be used across the state to collect the data. So when they look at factors and weights, they have to have reliable data that they can be able to gather the information from. So the census data and then the American Community Survey is the other.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie.
And I can leave a copy of this letter with you.
All
I
right.
think I sent it.
There's one in the packet.
Yeah.
And so that
Yeah, we got it.
that would be something for you to consider if you wanted to submit comment.
Yeah. Thank you.
So then we need to make a motion if we want to.
I think that would,
I'll make a motion to submit a comment to that.
had a motion by Moore, second by Lovegren to submit a comment and a letter to, during this comment period. Any discussion?
Comes back.
Just
Not,
to clarify it's to support rural change request.
right.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll get that. Yeah, here, award the bid to Sturgeon Island Bridge.
Mr. Chair, Mark is on the Zoom.
Mark, are you there?
This is Ken. Oh.
Got him, Ryan, or not? Should we move on to something else for right now?
Issues with mute, looks like.
We'll move on to we'll skip that and come back to it. National County Government Month.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so April is annually county government month or county government appreciation month. And so there is resolution 2023-2024 for your consideration.
I'll move that, Mr. Chair. I'll move that.
Okay,
I'll second.
motion by Ludwig, seconded by Moore. To approve resolution 2023-24. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? First quarter budget report.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. So if you jump right to the charts, at the end of the first quarter, the county budget is about exactly where we would expect it to be. Chart number one shows the percent spent and the percent collected in the major funds. At this point in the year, the spending is always ahead of collections. Highway is the outlier with the early reimbursements on some county state aid projects, but that's typical with how revenue and expenditures look at this point in the year. Chart number two is looking at general fund revenue as a percent for since 2020, so for 4 years of data. And this chart is maybe interesting in that you can see how volatile some of the department revenues are. That really is a factor of timing more than anything else. And so it highlights that at any point when we look, it's just a snapshot. There's nothing in here on the revenue side that is concerning at this point. On chart number 3, we show general fund expenditures as a percent. And everything is about where we would expect it to be. If you look at IT and recorder, you'll notice those are past 25%. Again, that's typical at this point in the year with IT paying on a number of vendor contracts and support contracts. And then in the recorder's office, we had the payment for the tax and CAMA system. And so that looks like it negatively impacts the operating budget, but we know on the back end, it really doesn't. And it's a planned expenditure of reserves. Part 3B is probably the most interesting of all today. And none of them are particularly interesting, I admit. But the black line shows the average of expenditures at the end of the first quarter for the last 4 years. And if you look at that chart, you will see that some of the red lines are above it. And we expect those because they're just expected expenses that we've paid early, like on veterans services. We bought a van. That van was reimbursed by the Veterans Council. So the bottom line is fine. But most of those lines or most of the red bars are at or above where the average is. I think that is an inflationary pressure and a wage pressure that we are just feeling in the budget. Typically at the end of the year, we always come in under budget. This year is probably going to be that challenging year where we have tightened the budget and everything costs more money. And so I just draw that your attention to that this might become a chart that at midpoint and 3/4 through the year will become kind of the canary in the coal mine signal. Chart 4 looks at the Health and Human Services Fund. And at this point, everything looks as it should. And there is a chart number 5, which is the ARPA spending. And the first column just shows the allocation. The second column shows what was spent as of the end of the first quarter. And then the last column shows what's unspent. If you go just down to line 21 on the radios, you see there's a negative $55. So those cost a little bit more than we allocated. But if you go down 2 more lines, you'll see that the Sturgeon Lake Stormwater Study came in a little bit below the allocated amount. So between now and the end of the second quarter, we'll make those adjustments to zero those out. And then the balance will roll down at the bottom. You see there's an unallocated amount. That is the result of interest earnings. And so I guess this is just a snapshot of where we are with ARPA spending. And many of these programs are proceeding, but money has not been spent on some of them are all spent. At the Extension Committee last week, there was some discussion about the 4-H program and how that has had a little bit of challenge getting out of the gate because they need to hire a person. And so you see that none of those funds are expended. And that would be line number 9. So that, I guess at the end of the first quarter, everything looks about as it should at this point in the year. I think we're going to have more inflationary pressure to stay within budget this year, but nothing is a significant concern. So I'm open for your questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Under vehicles equipment, we allocated 400,000, we spent nothing. Why then did the skid steer for the recycling center is going to get put on the general fund? Would that be considered a expenditure out of this,
This money was designated for some highway equipment. And so there's some vehicles like a plow truck that are on order and they just haven't been delivered yet. And so this money has been spent on vehicles that are on order and not delivered.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Is Mark on?
Mr. Chair, Mark LeBrun.
All right.
Apologize
we
for
got it.
that. Yep, I had to run down to the cities this morning, so I couldn't be there in person, so I apologize. And I'm
That's
not
all
very,
right.
not very good at technology either, so. Yeah, so we opened bids on the Windermere Township Sturgeon Island Bridge, and we got 3 really good bids. So hopefully this is foretelling our bid openings this year. And I would recommend awarding it to the low bidder, SNR Reinforcing, for $647,257.07. And as you can see in the memo, it was 27% under the estimate, and the township's responsible for $20,000 towards the engineering and bridge removal. So pretty good deal for Windermere Township there.
Yeah,
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
thank you.
Second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren. Any discussion?
Nice job, Mark.
All in favor, say aye.
Hey,
Opposed? Yes, nice job, Mark. And I do wanna add something. I was at a meeting with Mark last Friday. And Mark, because he has projects in hand, picked up a full $300,000 to add to the 1.2 million he's already got on hand for the bike trail from Rock Creek to Pine City. So another example of why we go to meetings.
is that gonna follow 61?
Yes. Yep, we already own the right of way, so.
Mr. Chair, do you guys
Yeah.
want just a quick update on the flooding here, the next item
Yeah.
before Easter?
You can give your part of that, yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't have any major damage. We've been through some pretty bad floods in the past, and the improvements we made over the years is all those structures have held out really well. But we do have currently County Road 21 out east of Sandstone is still underwater, and there'll be some washout to repair there. And then County Road 126 just south of Brook Park got quite a bit of washout. A few small centerline culverts that we'll have to replace, but they were probably old and plugged. That's typically why they wash out in those situations. And then Casada 19 south and east of Hinckley out there's a washout there that they're working on repairing. But I expect next week we'll have them all open, and I'm guessing for FEMA, we're going to be under 50,000. I mean, we've got overtime, we've got materials, some of that. We actually ran out of road closed signs, so that's never a good sign. We probably had 30 or 40 spots, from the north end of the county. It started up there and we were scrambling, and then it'd go down on one road and then it'd come up on another. And so the guys really worked hard last week to make sure people had some type of warning if there was water over the road. They did a great job with that. And so everybody always comes together and works hard. So any questions on that?
No, Mark, but just pass on the info back to your staff again for the job well done. They're putting out signs that the roads are flooded, and then they had to plow snow off the road again. So, and they've done that weekend after weekend for weeks.
Yeah,
So-
everybody wore out. So,
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
but they'll carry on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Denise, do you want to add your piece to flood report?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
All right, just to kind of piggyback off of what Mark has said, we have plenty of more flooding from north to south heading down. Right here, you see the city of Willow River. our drone footage, which actually is quite remarkable compared to what we started with the drone stuff. This is Willow Street that you're looking at.
I didn't catch the road that is.
Willow Street,
What road is that?
it's Willow Street,
Okay.
right in Willow River,
Merck.
past the Merck. This is towards Busnes and towards Standard Drive and Wyatt's Cove as you're heading south out of town. So along that, as you guys are watching, I do want to extend a thank you to Chris Matrius and Terry Carlson. They did multiple loads of sand and sandbags to be delivered at Willow River, Sandstone, and Pine City. Along with that, the Challenge Incarceration Program of Willow River did thousands of sandbags for us. So at each location, and most of those sandbags that were at Willow River are now being brought to Pine City for the people down here. We're looking at, our crest is right at about 9.5 right now. And it's gonna remain that way for about the next day or so. So
Denise,
this is at Fuseni's, right outside, right still on Willow Street.
Okay.
Willow Street follows the power lines.
and is that 60, that's,
61 is honestly right now,
okay,
right to our right as looking at this. So this is going back towards the Mercantile.
oh, okay, yep, got it.
And when was this?
This is 4 days ago, 3 days ago, it's on Friday, I believe. Yep, so it's still hadn't crested at this point. So, as we, on the top of the screen there, that is, I think the address is 8099 Willow Street. If you go a little bit further than that, the Mercantile is off to the left. And give you a point there, you know, the city of Willow River.
Were you the pilot?
No, Brad Carlson, for the last, I believe, 3 disasters that we've had, he's pretty good drone footage.
Good, really good footage.
So in the last 10 months, we've had 3 disasters. I think we've all had enough.
Yeah,
We hit our quota. So along with that, the sandbags, we have had Red Cross on standby. They've helped one of the families find temporary shelter. And they've also brought up cleaning kits, and we have water well test kits available for people shortly here. Which of course, we can't do anything until the water recedes for a few days. So the next step in the process, as you have in front of you, is the declaration. So that is the next thing that we're looking at, and then a preliminary damage assessment. Now, along with what Mark LeBrun has said about having just about $50,000 in damage, all the townships around us have had all their gravel washed off. And we know that at this point, that's one of the most expensive things. I've had quite a few contact me already today, and what is the next step in the process? There's been a little bit of miscommunication. Apparently there was a release of information last night in Carleton County stating that there's $40 million to be held to first come, first serve. That's not quite necessarily true. We still follow the same process. We have to do the declaration, all that, and apply for the money, apply for the funds through the townships, through the county to get that money reimbursed. So it's.
Denise, can I ask a question? This is the 3rd time I think we've done this since, like you said, the 4th of
10 months.
July.
Yeah.
So is the paperwork, have people actually, a township actually got money from the first one yet?
Yes.
Okay, and the one that happened, the next one was in December, right?
Yep, that is still very actively being worked on.
Okay,
Our deadline just happened March 30th
okay,
for the end of that.
for that reporting time,
Yeah, to get the public assistance sheet in.
okay.
So we had quite a few right at the last minute.
So did those 2 contact you then at the last minute?
They did, along with about 7 others.
Oh, wow, good deal. Well, it would have been nice if they didn't procrastinate. I'm glad they stepped up.
There's that. What didn't help us is that right at the beginning of the year, right, there were so many people that took over office
Right,
right at the end.
new people,
So the people that I was in contact with or tried to, they didn't know anything about it. And then you're a month in, and then. So it's like starting from scratch again.
yeah,
I have to say, I was driving down 61 coming here today, and you know, you had the tornado that went through and you had all the damage from the tornado. And now you look at it and you've got all the snow damage and the trees that are down from the snow on top of the ones from the tornado. It's
and then
devastating.
you got flooding.
And yeah,
Yeah.
You know, when they put the rocks.
So I think we're done disasters.
This is more in Willow River, but we know that we've got it like everywhere. I've been pictures down by Snake River and,
We do have some footage on there, but that was before the crest, and it's a little deceiving because it doesn't look as horrible.
We were gonna do it before they did. Yeah.
So there was a few things,
It's a dam.
but this
Rapid.
would show you the most of what was happening, and we only had a few minutes. So just good to play there. So at the end of this, if you guys were watching, the very last piece of it showed County Road 41 heading out.
Yeah.
And that's huge because right where the Moose Horn comes in the Kettle River, right there. And
It always goes over that whole spot west of there.
it does.
It's not underwater this time.
just further down, I think.
How's the box culvert looking on 61? Is that full?
So if you actually go down a little further, you see where the cars are parked, and then that's where it always goes under.
Yeah, that's that wet spot there. That's always done that my whole career.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mark LeBron here again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do, we have that old county road that goes on Main Street in Willow River that we turned back to them. And at the time, we wanted to get rid of that little bridge there. And it's still there, so it's owned by the city. And it's a little more challenging for the cities to get funding. So, I mean, it could be an issue. My thought was, when we do the culverts this summer in Willow, is that bridge necessary? It's kind of a hot topic up there. They all want to keep it, but just you're probably hearing about that as we go forward. And it's just it's not in very good shape. And so just to let you know, they might be contacting you about that.
Just goes to 41.
Yeah, right before you get, it's just west of the trail. There's that shortcut into downtown.
Yeah.
So we said if you want to keep it, then you get the road and you keep the bridge, and we did that probably, 20 years ago. So, but it's not like a township where there's a town bridge program, which, pays most of the engineering, so there's a lot of cost for a city to do a project like that. So, they've got to take on the engineering and all those other things. So, if we're supportive of them replacing it or whatever, just want to get that out there that, it's a little different process than if it was a township.
Thanks.
So just to wrap up, is what I'm looking at is to have the declaration signed for today.
Yep. So we're looking at,
So that's a township.
Resolution 2023-27.
I'll make
dash 27.
I'll make a motion for resolution 2023-27.
I'll second.
Got a motion for resolution, it'll be 23-27, which declares emergency. Any discussion?
I'd like to say thank you for what you do. I
Yeah.
think your job has just really been kind of stressful lately, and we appreciate you very much.
Mr. Chair, my wife works with somebody that is actually stranded on the Lower Snake River in Royalton Township. And so they said they had to come up with some emergency plan. So what do you do if there's no road you can get in and out on that thing? What do you do if there is an emergency and they're like someone needs?
We actually have more footage on the little bits that we're looking at, but I'm not going to show it to you right now. We have ice water rescue training because water is, and if there was an emergency, our RTCs and everything, and kind of makeshift boats, whatever we can do to get to those people. We have had contact with other people on Long Lake because they're also stranded.
Okay.
And because both north and south on Long Lake Road, you can't get through. I've contacted each of those people that have called us. We ask that you call 911, of course, at any time if you have an emergency. A lot of these people are sheltering in place and just wanted to get out to go shopping.
Mhm.
And it does feel, I would panic too if I had to stay in, and it's hard, definitely hard, but we talk to those people, and if it truly is an emergency, you call 911 and we will do our best to help you. So.
And you guys got the equipment to get there?
The RDCs, our search and water, we actually just had that training during the other blizzard. And a lot of our guys have been trained up now in I think probably 20, along with our fire departments. They're welcome to this training each year. So we have our instructors and go from there. The RDCs are, we call them like banana boats. If anybody's has seen them, they're inflatables. And they put the Gumby suits on, we call them. Ice water, cold water rescue suits.
Rubber boats don't keep you very warm.
No, but they get you to where you need to go. And then, of course, they have their ice picks and everything if they have to scoot across whatever kind of waters to get there. So.
Any other questions? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Yep,
Mr. Chair?
yep.
Before moving on, I know Kelly is on the call and there are probably property owners who have water damage. I don't know if Kelly can review the disaster abatement process and how the assessor's office handles those.
Kelly,
Yes, I sure can. So Kelly Schroeder, County Auditor Treasurer. And so the assessor's office is going to be working with Denise to identify properties that had damage to structures. We understand there's a lot of erosion and things to land, but state statute only allows us to look at structures for what we do for property tax relief. So as soon as the water goes down and it's safe to get out, we'll be out checking out things that are identified structures that are identified that have water in them. And so we'll go from there. With it being a declared disaster, then we'll end up working with the Department of Revenue so that any abatements we provide will be reimbursed by the state, hopefully. And you'll see them come across on the board agenda when we have all the work done. Questions?
okay.
Can I jump on something here, Kelly?
Yeah,
And not about
absolutely.
your structure, but about the winter storm. What, have you heard when they're gonna fly for the new photographs for Beacon?
So I had a conversation last week with the vendor on the new aerials, and it's interesting because you got to hit the sweet spot. After you want the snow gone, you want the ice out, but you have to do it before the leaves bud out. And so this is a really tricky year with it because late last week I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we got to get this flown because the leaves are going to start to pop with it being so warm. But now we're kind of back to cooler weather. So hopefully we have a little bit more time for things to dry out and the snow to still try to melt and see. They fly a lot throughout the whole state. So it's kind of nice. They can jump in and do us whenever, kind of on short notice, whenever we're ready.
How long does it take for us to get the new stuff online?
It'll be about mid-June.
So I want to see the timber damage. That's what I'm really interested in. So.
All right. Yep. That'll be interesting.
So Kelly, I have a question. A few years back, there was major flooding that happened again and it went down I believe it was the Kettle River. So it went through like Rutledge area and following the river. And a lot of those people sold their properties and that they were demolished and they're gone, but we have the ones that did not. Is that going to be, if this is an effect again, where they're going to be really hit, is this going to be something that's going to be reopened to them or did they have to sign something that said that they would not or?
So I'm so very grateful for those that did, because looking at, for example, Willow Street, I was like, oh, that house would have been under and that house would have been under. But those that are remaining, the program is out there. However, after the 2012 flooding, it's generally a federal program that allows a 75% buyout. So whatever the property's worth, you pay them it, and then the federal government pays you reimburses you the 75%. When we did those after the 2012 flood, it was great because the state jumped in and did that last 25%. Otherwise, Pine County cannot be on the hook for $1 million to buy out properties that should have never been built where they were built. But through that program, the state had jumped in and made up the difference. So we just had to administer it. Where since then, like 2016, we had significant flooding again, and it was only the 75% reimbursement. And I can't imagine that Pine County has the funding to start matching that 25% that's not covered. And property owners aren't willing to only take 75% either. They want 100%. So unless the state jumps in, we probably won't be going down that road, unfortunately. Unless the
Okay.
board also directs to do that.
It's a lot of money.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Snow. Quite a huge bullshit.
Let's see, where are we at?
Insurance.
Number 7.
Schedule a special meeting, committee of the whole to meet with the sheriff's office, jail discussion. And we've kind of zeroing in on May 9th. That work for people? Need a motion. Yeah, I'd like a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to have a cow meeting on May 9th at 9 at the courthouse in Pine City.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for a special meeting on May 9th at 9 a.m. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think that's it. We'll move on to commissioner updates. East Central School Government Day. I took part in that. I thought it was great. We had about 50-ish.
65, I think.
65 kids there from East Central's 9th graders, I believe. To learn about what goes on in county government.
So on that, we had an extension committee and David kind of blew me away that day. I had always thought that East Central was the only school that stepped up that wanted to do this, but he mentioned that Hinckley wants to do it too. And so trying to figure out how to do that. I think it's such an exceptional thing watching these kids walk in and seeing how government works. And I mean, it's such a good opportunity that anything we can do to help you brainstorm that so that the other schools can be involved. Or how to work around that, I think it would be good.
Yeah, it's hard to probably handle more kids
It's a
than.
lot of kids, yeah.
Yeah, and the way we do it now, we're maxed out at 65 kids. And that, I think they get something out of it. And many of the folks online and in the room were a part of the day. And so can make your own assessments, but the time for each department is very limited. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes in some cases. And so it moves very quickly. And it's just, I asked the question in extension because 4-H was there and they're focused on youth development and youth and government kind of things are in their wheelhouse. And so as we look to the future, if we want to expand it, we're going to have to figure out how to come up with a model that works.
All right. Thanks, everybody that participated in that. I think it was good for all of us. East Central Solid Waste, continuing to work on a new plan for the new cell that'll be built. Actual construction will probably be next year. There's a lot of work that can be done with staff, and so that'll help. Things are still backed up in the supply chain. They ordered a new truck, I believe, last August. They got a new truck. It wasn't the truck they ordered because the truck they ordered is still on back order. Somebody else had ordered a truck just like it, just a different color. And by the time their truck was available, they'd found another truck. So our guys said, we'll take it. We need a truck. But that's a long time to wait almost to get a vehicle. It's a semi tractor. But anyway. East Central Library.
The Sandstone Library will be opening soon. They got their furniture and their bookshelves a couple weeks ago. So hopefully that will be open in the next couple of weeks, maybe. Pine City Librarian is now going to be working jointly with the Rush City Library. They lost another librarian and so they're going to be sharing. The other thing that they did was they changed the language so that your degree that you need to be a librarian has been lowered so that people who have experience can also jump on board, which I think will help. Another thing that they did, which I'm really happy about is, and I'm going to use the Hinckley Librarian as where this goes. We have Hinckley Librarian shares with Sandstone Librarian, and the Hinckley hours are so many that our aide works a lot of those hours and she works them alone and she's amazing. And so a while back, I had asked if they could look at these positions where they have shared librarians so that these aides get a better wage because their job duties are so much more. And so that was just approved. And so we've got 3 or 4 aides that are going to be getting a bump in their grades, which will get them a raise, which I'm excited about because Hinckley's one of them. The other thing is I attended the naloxone training here the week before. And so we are going to move forward with that with the library system. And so we're going to actually have the naloxone training for all of the board members on the library so that they see exactly what it is and how it's administered and how it can affect people and go from there. So that should be coming forward soon.
Northeast Area Transportation Partnership, I talked about that. That's where Mark had a plan and picked up another 300,000. They will be doing a bunch of work next year, just north of Hinckley freeway. So there's a pretty rough stretch there, I think, between 2 bridges, I think is where they were talking. Just so everybody's aware, even though there's a surplus of money in state government, the transportation fund is underfunded. And they get their money from a variety of ways, but it has definitely not kept up with inflation. And so, and it's not because they're not collecting a gas tax from the EV cars. Because I didn't know this for sure. But when you buy their license tabs, you pay an extra $200 surcharge on your license tab if you have an EV car. Because if somebody has calculated the average car spends about $140 a year, $150 or something like that on gas tax in a year. You drive the average amount of miles. So, you know, we hear people say that all the time. Anyway, they get money from that, which is really flattened out. And then of course, inflation's eaten into it. And they get money from car parts, a portion of the tax. If you go to Napa and you buy a set of brakes, a portion of that tax money goes into the transportation fund, but they've never made that a constitutionally dedicated fund, that transfer. So I think there's some movement afoot to make those so it's not going to get taken away 3 years from now or whatever by a different legislature.
So I had just gotten an email, this past week asking us to step out and contact our legislatures and talk to them about the transportation fund. Is that something that was talked about then too? And is that something that we should be doing individually or as a county?
I think individually as board members, we should.
Okay.
I think because it's something that affects everybody. We all drive on roads and it affects every level of government. Townships get a portion of the gas tax money. Counties do, cities do. And we're all, and of course the state. And so we're all in this thing together. And I think, you know, people can poo-poo everything, but I just know that the county, that's all the gas is on roads, and we are getting behind. Matt brings it up to me every time chance he gets, that we're not resurfacing the roads fast enough, you know, I mean, if we have to keep up. Barely there.
This year's gonna be worse because we had so much ice and snow
Yeah.
and rain and the roads are really taking a beating.
So that's my soapbox.
And Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
Terry, to your point, I think the House Transportation Omnibus Bill is on the House floor today, is what I read last.
law library.
Tomorrow. It got canceled last week and switched to.
Extension.
What about extension? You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we talked about 4-H. 4-H did a presentation on what they do. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is in Pine County, they have 33 first year 4-H members, but they have 14 first generation 4-H members, which shows that the families are starting to move more. We did talk about the Mille Lacs Band, after school with the kids, and the job description is out there and they're just waiting for people to apply. Did you hear more? Is it actually out on where other people can see it, or is it?
I have not followed that up.
Oh, okay, okay. So they are looking for other places for the 4-H to partner with, like Mille Lacs Band, or if anybody knows of any kid activities that are going on. It cannot be church oriented because it's not a religious organization, but they are looking for other places for 4-H to partner with. That was a big part of it. The Farm Family of the Year was chosen, but after some of the conversation, I don't know if it can be stated yet. So there's the Farm Women or the Woman Farmer of the Year nominations are coming up. If you know of anybody, let us know. And that's all that I have. Do you have anything more?
Yeah, Terry Solomon, he talked about that Discovery Garden in Pine City. That's coming along really good. How many tulips did he say they planted? 1,300 or something?
A lot.
There.
Well, he said that they've gotten over $30,000 in donations.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be pretty cool, when it's done.
And if you drive by it, the bulbs are all coming up, so it's gonna be gorgeous and it's gonna smell.
And then what else did we talk about? We talked about, yeah, just trying to find better ways for 4-H to partner up. So if you guys think of some, if there's some organization in the area to try to just get them out there, let Extension know or let us know and get it figured out. So otherwise, that was about it.
Highway 23. Annual meeting.
You wanted to go, JJ?
Oh, go ahead.
It was good. We got to sit with Jack, which is always good because you've got that inside going there. Steve and I got interviewed about why we believe that Highway 23 is important to make it into 4 lanes, and the fact that we've had 2 deaths on 23 over by Brook Park was brought up. And so hopefully that'll help look at the situation to see that it does need to come further east and Mora. Right now they're looking at from Malacca to Mora on 23, which needs it pretty bad too. Pete Stauber was the speaker and he did a good job and he supports this. So that was a good thing to hear. Do you have anything to add?
I just back the original letter that we had written when we, as a county, donated money to them, adding that line that I wanted to add, that we should look further. I mean, it is between Malacca and where's the other direction? It's not in our area. But just that if they feel so strongly that 4 lanes is good, which it is, you know, what are they gonna do on this end for us? And somebody even asked me if 23 even ran in our county. Yeah, yes, it does. It goes all the way through and to Duluth, and other than the traffic count, when you get north of Asco, which is only what 500 a day, that's annual. There's, you know, I don't know what you're gonna do there to make the road better. There's challenges because it's deemed the Evergreen Memorial Highway. It's even hard to work on the right of way if you do anything electrically or fiber or anything because it's also a wider right away. So that's all I would add, I guess.
It'd be nice if they could even just get maintenance on that road because it's such a gorgeous road. You know, and I think
Yeah.
more and more people are
Look
using
at
it
the
now.
ditching, there's no shoulders.
Right.
No. So if you do have a breakdown on our northern stretch, you're sitting right in the path of traffic.
Other,
I have some others.
Yep.
So I set in on clear forms, which is where we can do all of our permitting. So it'd be like the sheriff's office, it'd be the assessor's office, it'd be zoning. It was really interesting to hear how they did it. I talked to Kelly and she said that they get things about it all the time, but it's very, very expensive. And I couldn't get a price at that meeting. So they are going to be down in Texas when I'm down there. And so I'll take some information and see if we get some information as to what it would cost. It sounds like it simplifies things so that people can just go online and get their applications. But then like Kelly had stated, they can go print their applications and stuff offline now. So, you know, if there's a huge fee to it, it's not going to be worth looking at. And then Parks and Trails. Steve and I sat in on Parks and Trails yesterday and it was the membership committee. I'm trying to get memberships. So one of the things that, one of the things that Steve just brought it up too is that when it's going to those meetings is how you're going to get the money to do the projects that you need to get done. So we've got the rest of the bike trail that needs to come from Pine City, then up to Hinckley, and then it'll pop up with the Munger Trail. So just trying to figure out how we can work on that project and see if we can get some money for that. But also how we can get other people committed to being a part of this. So I was thinking, like Sandstone but that's one of the things with this committee is just trying to figure out who they can get for membership and go from there.
Is the band included in that?
Banning would be part of the state. So I don't know. I don't know if St. Croix or Banning.
I just wonder if they're at the table or.
It should be. Yeah. It was interesting. There's a lot of individual members that belong to this, which I'm not real sure why. And then it's a lot of the cities. There's quite a few counties too.
a lot of cities,
Yep, lots of cities. I was surprised at the counties.
a lot of companies.
Yeah.
A lot of county, I told them, I said, you got to realize there's a lot of counties like ours that we don't have a Parks and Trails department. They got people coming to the meeting who's, instead
The
of,
DNR typically does
that's
it.
their job, they're the Parks and Trails director for whatever county,
City or whatever.
Douglas County. We don't have those people.
I have one more. I will not be at the road inspections next Tuesday. I've been asked to be part of the board for coming up with proposals for the legislature for 2024 concerning ICWA. And so that meeting's going to be during the road inspections next week. So I won't be there, but we need to see what we can do to help our Native children and their families, but to help the county and make it cool. So.
I got one other thing, and that is, I was asked to just give a quick presentation at the Rock Creek City Council meeting. And I think sometimes we forget, they wanted an update on broadband because they had some misinformation. And I think it's important that we go to those township meetings, and I don't have very many township meetings to go to. I only got one. I got two city council meetings to go to, but that we stay in contact with those people because a lot of times they get information that isn't correct. And so it's nice to give them the most correct information. Even if it's not a lot of information.
So I got a phone call. I want to bring this up too, because we need to talk about this. And we mentioned it at the last committee of the whole meeting that we need to do this, but it does need to be talked about is the recycling and the garbage. I got a phone call from a lady who was really angry, and I thought she was angry at us. She's angry at the people who were putting their garbage in the recycling bins and not cleaning their stuff up enough. But she talked about how important recycling really is and how she loved Josh's idea of adding $5 to everybody's tax bill and providing that. So I know that we did talk about it at the committee of the whole and that it needed to be worked on, but we do need to work on that so to figure out how we can help this process.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, I consider this meeting adjourned. Thanks, Paul.